Trevor Keyser was fired from Home Depot for wearing a button that said "One Nation Under God" and bringing his Bible to work. He says his right to his religious expression was attacked, and that the company is saying, and at the same time, the company is saying no buttons are allowed at all other than, company buttons. It's a rule. If Home Depot was unionized, as it should be, these are the types of issues that unions could handle, I would think. But instead of encouraging a union to defend and represent workers, some folks are turning to legislation that forbids religious discrimination in the workplace. Perhaps we need both, democracy in the workplace and laws to keep employers honest. And businesses also need to have the right to dictate, as much as it hard to get the words out through my teeth, but businesses also have, at a certain level, should have a right to dictate how their public face is presented. Isn't Alan Reinach is with us? Alan is the director of the Church State Council and president of the North American Religious Liberty Association West, an attorney, and a Seventh-day Adventist minister. The website churchstate.org. Alan, it seems like there's multiple issues here. Give us your take. First of all, your thoughts on this.
Well, I think the core issue is one of religious accommodation and whether companies have the right to simply exclude religious expression in the workplace. Now, there's a fine line when religious expression becomes harassment or is unwelcome that employers have to walk through. But in this case, it looks like a clear case of discrimination because, at least according to Keyser, nobody complained about the button for 17 months, and management only took notice of it when he started reading his Bible during his lunch break.
Yeah, the button said "One Nation Under God, Indivisible." As
Correct.
I recall. Yeah, okay.
With an American flag.
Right.
Look, this is a lose-lose for Home Depot because either they come across as being unpatriotic or they come across as being hostile to religion.
But at the same time, what if he had been wearing a button that said, "I'm a Satan worshiper, you should be too"? Would you be defending him?
First of all, I'm not representing him in this case.
Would you be on this show defending him?
I don't know. I really don't. Because, look, we believe in liberty of conscience. We believe that everyone has the right to their beliefs and to express their religious beliefs. I would think with a button like that, there would be enough, offense given to the customer base that Home Depot would have a much more legitimate claim to say, look, this is just, it's too offensive to our customers.
But now, "One Nation Under God" is being used to, that phrase has become a touchstone for the hard right to I can tell you Bill Maher and his atheist buddies would be offended by it. There are some people who are going to be offended by any kind of religious expression that is
right.
written out. If he was wearing a cross around his neck, if he was wearing a yarmulke, something like that, I think those are appropriately protected by the anti-religious discrimination in the workplace laws that are already on the books. But wearing a button that has words on it, that's not an expression of religion that's consistent with being religious. That's proselytizing.
Well, to a certain extent, even if it is proselytizing, some sort of religious expression of that sort is still protected under the law. It's still a religious accommodation issue.
How so? To the best of my knowledge, the law says that you can't be discriminated against because of your religion or because of an appropriate expression of your religion that's consistent. Some Jews believe that they have to wear a yarmulke, otherwise, God's going to be unhappy. Some Christians believe that they really should have a crucifix or a cross around their neck or something like that. This is part of it. But I don't think any of them believe that they should be wearing, a button that says Mashiach now, or a button that says says, I am the truth, the way, etc.
Sure. Well, look, one of the misconceptions is that the only protected expressions of religion are those that are compulsory, that are required by one's religion. If religious expression is a sincere expression that someone believes in, it can be voluntary. It does not have to be compulsory. For Christians, I don't know Mr. Keyser, expressing your faith and witnessing, as they say, is mandated by the New Testament. So he may regard it in some sense as a compulsory.
Well, then you get into the situation. I mean, there are we've got this with pharmacists right now. There are some pharmacists who are because of their religion, usually Catholic, believe that birth control is a sin, and they're refusing to pass out birth control. And my answer to them is, don't become a pharmacist. And if he believes that his religion requires him to proselytize, then quit your job and go to work for the Salvation Army.
Look, there's a broader issue here, Tom, and I think it really is whether we want to return to the 50s, where every American worker is required to completely conform to the corporate structure and be good little cogs in the system and leave their own beliefs and values, and whether they're religious or otherwise, at home, and simply reflect perfectly the conformity to the corporate ideal. Before I came on, I heard the ad for Hightower's book, Buck the System, and I have to think that Keyser, in his own way, probably never heard of Hightower. He's being an individual.
Yeah, but here, you raised the 1950s. In the 1950s, about 35% of the U.S. workforce was unionized. I mean, right now it's about 7% when you exclude government employees, and isn't probably the most effective way to make sure that employees' rights are dealt with locally, rationally, in ways that are consistent with the local community. I mean, the rule of how somebody, for example, dresses in a restaurant that's in the middle of a Hasidic neighborhood might be very different than the rule about how somebody dresses that's in the middle of a largely Catholic neighborhood. Isn't that the kind of thing that's best dealt with by the one single unique institution of democracy in the workplace that we refer to as unions?
There's no question that unions do have the ability to defend the rights of workers, and frequently they do that. But unions also have their own agenda and frequently engage in horse trading with management and will essentially trade, one worker for another in disciplinary matters. I have seen unions occasionally be very, very helpful to people requiring religious accommodation, and I've seen them be of no help.
So how far,
in other cases.
Alan Reinach, how far at churchstate.org, how far are you willing to push this thing?
Look, the basic principle is very simple. Companies ought to accommodate the religious beliefs and practices of their workers unless it has a real impact on their business that would justify their saying, no, we don't have to live with that. That's the basic premise. Under the facts of any given case,
they would have to demonstrate an impact on their business rather
Correct.
Than simply infer it.
Correct.
And that demonstration would be done by what? Complaints from customers, for example?
Well, in terms of religious appearance, it's often very difficult, really, for the employer to meet that burden. The easy case is, for example, a Sikh who wants to be in a construction job that requires a hard hat, and they can't figure out how to wear their turban underneath their hard hat, and that's a safety rule that simply cannot be negated.
Right. Yeah. So obviously there are going to be some gray areas here, but interesting conversation. Alan Reinach, churchstate.org is his website. Alan, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tom.
Good talking with you today. And this is going to be a fascinating case going to the Supreme Court. Actually, Home Depot of all things.